Welcome to the Giving Room with Dave and David, where we encourage remarkable generosity, from amazing stories to easy to understand discussions about tools for giving that may just be right for you.
Hey, I'm Dave.
And I'm David.
Welcome to the Giving Room. And today we have a special guest. This is Courtney Markley.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And Courtney is from the Markley coaching group. And she kind of has some really cool things about finances, different ways of seeing things. And I'm really looking forward to kind of unpacking more of her story. So grab a chair and here we go.
Yeah, sometimes, we've said that a lot, we're all about encouraging remarkable generosity. And we use inspiration a lot of the times. We'll have either inspirational stories and sometimes we'll even kind of dig into some theology. And I think we're going to do that a little bit today. So I'm excited to do that because that's sort of our source for all of this. And then Christ is our example of generosity. So super excited about that. So this is really going to be like, how do we think about money a lot today? And then what do we do with it? And we're excited. We're just excited to have you. So why don't you first, and we already said your name, but tell us who you are, what you do, and then we'll just kind of work from there.
Absolutely. And thank you again. Anytime I get to talk about Jesus and money, I'm pumped. So my name again is Courtney Markley. I am the owner and founder of the Markley Coaching Group, and I'm on a mission to change the way we talk about money. So I partner with ministry leaders, business owners, and just regular families on how to communicate better about money in a biblical, Christ-centered way. So I don't do insurance, taxes, investments, but what I do is I focus on people's behavior to affect their financial habits.
Yes, you really are in a coaching role then, really a discipleship role. You're not selling a product. You're really just trying to walk alongside, again, individual family, business owner, and kind of help them take some of the next best steps that are consistent. Well, tell us about that. I feel like there's probably been some experience in your own life that has led you here. I'd love to hear just a little bit about that, and then also kind of what's that meant then. So where are you, and sort of how do you coach folks? What's the primary philosophy here?
Absolutely. So real quickly, it first came from my own personal financial mess that I got here, honestly. And I always joke that throughout the Bible, God handpicks the people who are least likely, to succeed, so that when they do, he says, it's because of me, not you. And I feel like that's what he did with me and my family in the most humbling way. So long story short, when I was in my early 20s, my husband and I, we were already married at that point, and I accumulated about $100,000 of debt. And I use the word I because it was mostly me, not him, and I take credit for that. And it was a really low point in our relationship and in my life, spiritually, mentally, relationally. It was just all-time low, and I was feeling depression, and it was because of this weight, this financial burden.
That's important. So sometimes I think people may feel like they're kind of alone in this, and they aren't realizing that this one thing is rippling into all of the things. So you just said that, right? That the money piece was actually impacting all of the pieces, like your family and the relationship.
Yes. And God used that time because the financial piece wasn't the actual problem. It was just a symptom of a much deeper problem. And so in order to fix it, quote unquote, I had to get closer with the Lord. I had to be diving deeper in my relationship with Christ and focusing on my behaviors and my mindset before the debt could go away. And so once I did that and essentially started unclenching my fist and coming to God and trusting him with my money, I realized, I can trust him in every area of my life. And that seems so silly coming from someone, I grew up in the church, but it's normal to have debt. It's normal to have these struggles, but we don't normally talk about them.
Yeah, well, and that's what's great about, we actually just heard you this week
yes,
talk, and we're like, we have to bring her in because I think it's true that this is definitely on the list of the top 5 or so things that we struggle to talk about. And lots of times we don't even want to talk about them. And that's both individually, with friends, with our family, and even from the pulpit a lot of times, that this is one of those topics that just seems to be hard, and there's like resistance. You didn't say these words, but it sounded like you almost said that you realized as you went through that process for yourself that it wasn't really a math problem. Is that
exactly
true? It was something else?
Yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
unpack that for us.
Yes, and it's funny, God had to remind me of that constantly, because even when I first started my coaching business, I was only focusing on the math for people. I said, "Oh, your problem is just a math problem. Like, let me help you. I can create a budget.
Let me give you this budget.
Yeah, I can create an excellent Excel spreadsheet, right? Let me create this budget for you." And then time and time again, they weren't following the plan, even though the math worked, right? I could prove the math worked. And again, God was hitting me over the head saying, "Courtney, just like with you, it's not about math. You have to go so much deeper." And I'm no longer surprised when I talk to someone new where I hear about past trauma or deep wounds, just different things that they've struggled with personally that are now bubbling up, and they're experiencing some kind of financial stress because of it. So the financial stress is almost a sounding alarm to say something's wrong here, but we need to go deeper.
And I'll even borrow from that a little bit too. I mean, this is even from my own life on finances, is even if you're not in deep debt, the ability to have the money can still be a heart problem. It can still be a difficult thing to talk about. You don't have to be in financial trouble for it to still be an issue for you. Because the over stinginess can actually be a very similar heart issue with your money. And I think that's kind of as we dive into this, I'm just making sure too, if you're listening, you don't have to be in deep debt for this to be relevant for you.
Yes.
This is kind of all of us struggle to talk about money, especially in this culture. And so I'm really excited to kind of even unpack the kind of that heart stuff as we dive into this.
Yes. Yeah. And if I could, I love that you brought that up, because you're absolutely right. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are or, what's in your bank account. It's a heart issue no matter where you're at. And I see it at all full ends of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. I talk to people who make buku dollars, right? I talk to clients who are millionaires, and they still have this tight grasp on their money. And we have this mentality of more money will fix my problems no matter what. Or, or we say, I'm a good steward, I tithe, and then the rest is mine. And we still don't have that personal, close relationship with Christ. And I was recently just talking with a friend who said, yeah, we've always tithed. We tithe on the gross even. But I have no joy in my giving, and I feel distant from God. And so it's really not about the money, right?
It's not even that mechanical, I'm doing this tithe thing, they're checking the box. It's like there's more.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, we want that to be the thing, because we talk about cheerful, spiritual, and intentional giving here in the giving room. So the cheerful part isn't, one of the reasons we talk that's a thing is because it's not necessarily a natural thing. So I'm not surprised that your friend had that. Well, can you tell us a little bit, like, maybe, and this can ebb into the dangers of wealth a little bit. I feel like the American dream kind of pushes us one way, and Scripture may not always support that exact same thing. So I don't know, is there like dangers or where we are?
100%. And I'm so glad that you guys are willing to step into this conversation, because it can get a little sticky for people, right?
Hang in with us. I mean, like, this will be good in the end, right?
Yes, it will. There's so much goodness here, I promise. Here, let me highlight something real quick before I go into the dangers of wealth. I talk to people day in and day out about their money, right? That's what I do. So I have a view more than most on how people think about their money. And the really alarming thing is when I talk to Christians and non-Christians about how they view money, what their dreams are, what they want retirement to look like, they all have the same answers. Think about that for a minute. That's really scary. That's alarming to me. And
I guess it depends on what the answer is.
It's not about Christ, I'll tell you that.
Well, right. The fact that Christians and non-Christians have the same answer.
The same answer, right?
Period. Is a concern, yeah.
I just want to be comfortable. I just want to be happy. It's all of those things. I want to get into this school system. I want to get into this kind of house. I want to take my family on these kind of vacations. I want to spend more time with my kids. That's not a bad thing. But all of these things are deviating us from our central purpose, which is to put God first.
Right.
So this is a sounding alarm, and that's why I've started pairing with more churches and ministry leaders to say, hey, we need to talk about this. This is a serious thing going on. So one of the dangers of wealth is that for a lot of us with money, and it doesn't matter how much money you have in America, most of us are wealthy on a global spectrum, right?
Yeah, whether we know it or not.
Whether we feel it or not,
Right.
exactly. Just for perspective, the global median income for an individual is $2,100 a year. $2,100 a year.
Yeah, that's an annual number.
An annual number. So we are wealthy whether we feel like it or not. So one of the biggest deterrents, the dangers of wealth is we view money as security. We do. As your bank account goes up and down, or as the stock market goes up and down, your feelings of security also go up and down. I have a client they're just about to retire, and they lost a lot of money last year in the stock market. And he's up every day checking the numbers. The first thing I asked him is, what's your prayer life like? How much time are you spending with Christ? And he goes, yeah, not a lot. I was like, okay, there's the problem, right? Because we're reliant on our money to save us versus God. And that's a problem. Big problem. Another danger is that it breeds this self-sufficiency. And this is so dangerous because in our culture specifically, we're taught to not be dependent on anyone, not even Christ. I had this thought the other day, if you allow me to go here for a moment. If we woke up tomorrow and we're kind of in this like goofy alter universe, right? Kind of think of like a Hallmark movie. We just woke up and your life is
definitely not reality.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely not reality. Everything about your life was exactly the same, except for the very existence of God never existed. Okay, so Jesus never existed. God never existed. It's not that he left us, but he just never existed, okay? How would we view money any differently? That convicts me a lot. Would I all of a sudden feel this, oh my goodness, now it all depends on me for my finances? No, because that's how I've been operating anyways.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's one of the big dangers of wealth is it starts to separate us from God, and we don't realize that our true dependency lies with him. And we see examples happening in the Bible even. God's talking about the Israelites in the desert when he's saying, when I fed them, they became proud and they forgot me.
So even though he was the one making the provision,
Yes.
they often forgot. And
Yes.
and that's not just an Israelite problem.
Exactly. No, absolutely not.
Right.
But you can think about it. If they struggled with it and they knew God was feeding them daily, and yet even still some of them tried to hoard, right? How much more do we struggle with it, right? It's a daily struggle. It's a daily struggle.
Yeah, that wasn't even just money. So even in the wilderness, when we would feed them, like they were supposed to pick enough for themselves. And if they could do more, that was for the other people who couldn't do enough. And if they held it for themselves, then it actually spoiled.
Exactly. Exactly.
Which shows the futility of hoarding it. Like, so no one valued.
Yes.
There was no value.
Yes, absolutely. And this is something, again, I always put a mirror up when I have these conversations because I preach what I most need to hear. Absolutely. That's why God handpicked me for this. He's like, you need this more than anyone, Courtney. But something that I'm constantly questioning myself and for my clients too, because we talk about the hard things and I ask them the hard questions. And I want to know, what does it say about the condition of your heart if we just continuously hoard money for ourselves, so that we never have to feel the need to rely on God, just in case something happens when there are people actually struggling right now who we could help, but we're choosing not to. We don't think about it that way, but it is a choice.
Right.
It is a choice. And I know these are hard things to hear, but it's important to have this conversation. I know.
Yeah. So far you've talked about the two dangers, right? There's this the money as our security, and then there's this idea that it breeds a self-sufficiency. We lose it separates us kind of from God because we don't feel a need for him. Are there any other dangers that we should be thinking about?
Yes, there's two more that I want to point out, and there's probably, if we look through the Bible, there's a whole lot more, right? I always tell people Jesus talked about money more than anything else because he knows that this is the biggest roadblock to our discipleship with him. Another thing that I see day in and day out without fail, the more money you make, the more money you want. And people don't recognize it necessarily because we can rationalize a lot of these things as being good, right? I want to provide my kids this lifestyle. I want to do XYZ, right? When it starts to become dangerous is when we're not going to God first and we're not making sacrifices. Because our culture says you don't have to sacrifice.
Yeah, why would you do that?
Why would you work,
Right.
You worked hard. Why would you have to sacrifice?
Or you even deserve that.
Yeah.
Yes. Ooh,
Well,
yes. That's a phrase that gets me.
Yeah, deserve is yeah. But even it sounds kind of like an addictive quality, right? The more you have, the more you crave, and
Exactly.
you got a taste, and so you need you. It's and I think that is kind of
That's hardwired into us from our
Right.
fallen state,
Yes,
right? Is
yes.
that desire for more,
Exactly.
which kind of came down. That sort of started in the Garden of Eden, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that God has wired us to have this desire for more, but
more of
of
him.
him. Exactly. Like he knows we desire security. He knows that we desire more, but it should be more of his goodness, not more of the earthly things that, let's be honest, we might buy something and a week later, sometimes even a day later, we're like, that was probably not a great decision, right?
Yeah.
Right? So in Randy Alcorn's book, Money, Possessions, and Eternity, he actually did a study that showed the more money you make, the more likely you are to commit adultery. And it's this same theme of wanting more. And it's not just with money and it's not just with stuff, but it seeps into your relationships and every other area. And that's why it's so dangerous.
Wow.
So it's not something to take lightly. It's really not. The more money you have, God says it all the time, the more responsibility and the more dangerous it
Yeah,
it
the more
can
likely
become.
you could
So it's
trip up.
more of a burden
Yeah.
than sometimes a blessing. And I think we get that flipped.
so in the wise words of Uncle Ben from Spider-Man, and with great money comes great responsibility, right? Maybe no, sorry.
Similar. Yeah.
No, it's great power.
That's it.
And is there a fourth or
Yes. If you'll allow me, there's the other biggest thing, and we've kind of already hinted at this, but money breeds materialism. And so the
We don't
money
like
you
that
have,
word, right? Because that just sounds.
sounds icky.
Courtney, you're just really getting in our business.
Yeah, I know.
It's just
I know. I'm ruffling some feathers, and it's okay. This is why I'm here. We have to have the harder conversations.
Yeah. Can you unpack what materialism is, maybe, and then maybe what it's not, or does that
Yeah,
help?
absolutely.
Because I think sometimes that even is a jargony word in a church context, like that just seems like a churchy thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
So
not everybody may know what we mean.
yeah, absolutely. So I look at it, I guess, again, this continual need for more. So this accumulation of more things, more stuff, this searching for contentment that we're really putting in our stuff. And that was my issue that I had to wrestle with way back when. I was constantly finding my value in things versus God. And so materialism is essentially just putting more value on our stuff than on God.
Yeah. And it's easy to slide into that.
So easy. So easy.
And you could see how those even build on them. First, just to feel safe, I need money. And then I start putting my dependence on myself because I have
I think
money.
I'm the source.
Right. And then I need more money because I need more things.
Yeah.
And it just that as you can see how those
And then
dangers
the
all
things
work
just become
together.
the main thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it goes from starting with security to pleasure and trying to fulfill a need, a hole for God with stuff. Right.
Yeah. What's the antidote? Like, what are we supposed to be thinking? Like,
Yeah.
Is it that, we're not designed for here, or what's the...
Well, in some ways, obviously, first and foremost, if you're listening to this, you're probably wrestling with some things. And so I first want to draw out, how much time are you spending with Christ? How much time are you really seeking him out? And what's your prayer life like? That's first and foremost, right? Nothing else I can tell, like that's it. But I also want to bring attention to, there's a big mindset shift, because we all do know people who are radically generous for the kingdom, right? And they are so attractive and appealing in the sense that they clearly have something that other people want, and that's a genuine relationship with Christ. And that's what I want to bring forward is It's not that you're bad if you have money or if you I enjoy spending my money too, right? But if that becomes the primary focus of your purpose and of your life, then you're missing out on so much of God's goodness that he has for you, because these things do not sustain us. Jesus does. So one of the biggest mindset shifts that I focus on with people is shifting from an earthly mindset to an eternal mindset. And Randy Alcorn, again, in his book, Money, Possessions, Eternity, it's so good. You guys need to read it.
It is. I have.
It's so good.
It's actually in a backpack.
He gives this great example of one of the biggest things that essentially blocks people from being more generous is this idea that earth is our forever home, not the kingdom. And so to help people with this, because if you've grown up in the church, these are all things probably that you've heard before.
Yeah, you would say you believe that, but
Yes.
the way we live may not.
The way we live is in direct conflict
It may not
with it.
support that we believe that.
Yes, exactly. Jesus says, show me your treasure and I'll show you where your heart is. I think a modern day version of that is show me your bank statements, right? And I'll show you where your heart is. Again, that's incredibly convicting for me.
Mm-hmm.
So when we start to shift, though, into the eternal mindset, let me give you guys a quick analogy, if you will, okay? So a few years ago, my husband and I, we went on our first long-term or short-term missions trip, and it was to the Middle East. So we had a really long 12-hour flight. Okay, this is my first very long flight. It was okay.
I think I've done 8, and that was long enough. I don't know. You've probably done more.
I've done 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
At Johannesburg to DC.
Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry.
So long, too long. 12 hours was
12
long
would be a
enough.
long time.
12 hours was long enough. I did it again the following year pregnant, and I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it. But anyways, so picture with me that you're coming with me on this missions trip, and we're boarding this flight. You know you're going to be there for 12 hours. Now, in the span of our day, 12 hours is a long time, right? But in the span of your life, 12 hours is nothing, right? So it's all about perspective. But let's say we're sitting down, we're squishing into our seat. Always in these analogies, I have a middle seat. I don't know why. I hate the middle seat, but I do. So let's picture for a moment, there's a woman next to me sitting by the window, and she starts hanging curtains, and she starts decorating, and she's putting up all this stuff. And we look over and we ask her and say, "What you doing?" Right? Like that would pique our curiosity, right?
Right.
It's a little weird.
It's a little weird. I'm not gonna lie, I would have a hard time not being judgmental in that moment, right?
Right.
And she looks over and says, "Well, this is a long flight and I want to be comfortable. So I bought these custom curtains and I brought these pictures from home and, all these things, the blankets and throw pillows and the silliness of it all." You would think that woman's delusional, right? You say, why on earth are you wasting so much money and effort on something that will literally be useless in about 12 hours? And that is the exact thing that Christ is telling us when he's saying in Matthew, do not store up for yourselves treasure on earth. Store up for yourself treasure in heaven.
Yeah. So our life really is that 12-hour flight. And then all the things that we're doing.
Exactly.
That's not convicting at all.
No,
I'm
not
glad
at
it was
all.
convicting for you. Wow.
So
That's fantastic.
It has that one mindset shift has the power to change everything, because the little day-to-day things now you look at in a totally different light. And I'm not saying now, you can't spend any money. You can never go to Starbucks ever again. That's not what I'm saying, right? But I have this friend. He was saying that he goes with his wife to Target, right? Target for a lot of people is like they're, you walk in for one thing and you come out with
You can't only buy one thing.
It turns into the slippery slope of retail therapy.
Exactly. So he's shopping with his wife and he's looking over her shoulder saying, do you really want to spend God's money on that pre-trash? That's what he calls it, pre-trash. First, I would probably never go shopping with him again. But it's just like a radical view of, okay, if we're being really honest, like a lot of things that we spend money on is pre-trash, right? Wow. And so that could sound super harsh, but I want it to be an encouraging thing of let's get excited about the things God's saying that we can actually use our money to impact eternity. How cool is that?
And that's couldn't be more opposite than pre-trash.
Exactly. Right. So that's the piece. That's the hope is, we can stop doing these silly things that just cause us all this stress and all this burden.
Yeah.
And start focusing on the eternal and building relationships and building up God's kingdom. And that is going to be so fulfilling, right? And that's what God wants for people. And that's why we're here, right?
And I think you mentioned, right, you can look at your bank statement as a way to see where your heart is. And we did a previous episode where we talked about you can also use your wealth to direct your heart. That same idea. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be. And so as you go through this mental shift, that same thing that you can use to see where your heart isn't, you can also then change to use to direct your heart elsewhere. Again, that focus on, I want to invest in eternal things. I want to use my money to not buy pre-trash, but to actually take my heart and move it. And that's an incredible opportunity that we can use our money for. And suddenly, as you look at those dangers, it shifts the way. Instead of money being a danger, now it's a tool, it's a resource for building the kingdom, for building your joy, for building your purpose, rather than for moving you away from God.
Well, that's fantastic. And I think that's the goal, right? Because you said this isn't a math problem. That's sort of what you learned at the beginning.
Yeah.
You realized it was a heart problem. And I think we all, again, this is sort of the tough thing. That's a heart condition we all share, right? And realizing that all of this is just things that get in the way. They take our eyes off Christ. That's even what those dangers really mean, and that our eyes weren't on Christ. But when we can get it there, and then all the things that can be done that isn't for our little kingdom, but for His glorious kingdom, that's true freedom, right? And then that's to be able to join in that work is really an honor for us, and one we don't deserve.
Exactly. Wow. Exactly. That's where the true joy comes from. And you're exactly right. Once you have that shift, it becomes a true joy. It really does. And that closeness with God is even more cultivated.
That's fantastic. Well, where can folks find you? Like, I know, I think you even have a podcast, right? So there's a place that they can find everything about you. And if they wanted to work with you, how would they do that? How would they find you?
Absolutely. So you can reach me at my website, markleycoachinggroup.com. And you can also follow me on my podcast, The Heart of Money with Courtney Markley. And I coach people during the podcast so people can listen in and hear other people's money stories and money struggles. And if you like some of the hard questions, if you like kind of get into this uncomfortable, sticky place, come on over, because God is really transforming people in these conversations, and a lot of goodness is happening.
And I think I would just encourage you to do that. If you're listening and some of this is, pinged you even a little hard, this is a pretty safe place to do that. I think sometimes we may find it hard to do it in our own church context or with our friends, but I think it's fun for us to be able to say, here's a great resource that's maybe safer than we deserve, but a place to take that step. That maybe is a little more.
Well, Courtney, thank you for being with us today in the Giving Room. This has been an amazing conversation. I know I've got a lot to think about myself, and just kind of thank you for being part of this, for listening in as we go through. A couple things I wanted to just remind you, if you're struggling with money, don't just start with a budget, start with a heart. Where do you need to go? And if you start kind of seeing those dangers, are you viewing money as your security? Are you viewing it, are you feeling self-sufficient, like you don't need God? Are you find yourself constantly craving more? And are you finding yourself needing things to find satisfaction? Those are all dangers that kind of show that you have a heart issue that you need to work on. And I loved how Courtney said that The first thing is, where's your prayer life? Because prayer defines a dependence on God. That's what prayer is all about. It helps connect you with God and reminds you that you need Him. And so as you think through those things, that's also the place to start, is to start with prayer and asking for forgiveness, but also there. So I love that reminder there. So as you think through a couple resources that we talked about here, of course, markleycoachinggroup.com.
And we'll link all that.
Yeah, we'll link all of it. The Heart of Money, which again, for podcasts, you can look for that. We also referenced the Randy Alcorn book, Money, Possessions, Eternity, a couple times. We'll have a link to that as well. Again, thank you for hanging out with us and just for being part of the Giving Room today. Remember to subscribe and wherever you're listening to this so that you'll make sure you get every episode as we come through.
Yeah,
so
appreciate
you for being there. Yeah, for sure. And thanks for being part of the Giving Room.
The Giving Room podcast is brought to you by Giving Design LLC, where we help ministries and their donors utilize planned giving to change the world. Go to givingdesign.com to learn more. As always, a huge thank you to River Radio Ministries for sponsoring and producing this podcast. Go to riverradio.com to listen or learn more.